There's a moment that happens in almost every intimate encounter, a split second where a woman looks up and realizes the man above her has gone somewhere else entirely. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally, energetically. She's doing everything the magazines told her to do, everything the internet promised would drive him wild, and yet there's this unmistakable disconnect. A performance happening on both sides. And here's what Carl Jung understood about male psychology that 95% of women miss completely. Men don't crave what you think they crave. This isn't about technique. It's not about enthusiasm or variety or any of the surface-level advice you've been handed. What Jung discovered, through decades of studying the masculine psyche, through thousands of hours with male patients who finally felt safe enough to tell the truth, is that the male experience of receiving pleasure is fundamentally different from what our culture has taught us. And that difference? It's rooted in something so primal, so buried beneath layers of socialization and shame that most men don't even have words for it themselves. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will completely reframe not just this one act, but your entire understanding of masculine desire. And fair warning, once you see what Jung saw, you can't unsee it. The men in your life will suddenly make perfect, heartbreaking sense. Jung introduced the world to the concept of the shadow. Those parts of ourselves we've exiled, rejected, hidden away because they didn't fit the persona we needed to present to survive. For men, the shadow around receiving pleasure, around surrendering, around being serviced, is catastrophically deep. Because here's what happens to boys as they become men. They learn that their value is tied to performance, to providing, to being needed for what they can do, not for who they are. Think about it. From childhood, boys are taught that their bodies exist to accomplish tasks, to build, to protect, to produce, to penetrate. Their pleasure is always framed as something they take, something they earn, something aggressive and conquering. But receiving oral sex? That requires the exact opposite. It requires surrender, vulnerability, passivity, letting someone else be in control of their pleasure, their vulnerability, their body. And for most men, that's where the psychological warfare begins. Jung called this the tension between the ego and the self. The ego, the constructed identity, the mask we show the world, says I am powerful, I am in control, I am the provider. But the self, the authentic, integrated whole person, craves something entirely different. The self wants to be seen, held, worshipped without having to earn it. Not for what he does, but for what he is. And oral sex, done with true understanding, becomes what Jung might have called a sacred ritual, a moment where the feminine offers the masculine permission to simply exist and receive. But here's where 95% of women get it catastrophically wrong. They approach this act as a service they're performing, a favor, a gift they're giving. And men feel that. They feel the obligation, the transaction, the subtle resentment or the performance of enthusiasm. Because men have been trained their entire lives to read women's emotional states for survival. They know when you're not fully present. They know when you're doing this because you think you should, because you want it to be over, because you're following a script. And that knowledge, that awareness that you're not truly desiring this, not truly wanting to be there, triggers the deepest shadow material. Because it confirms what the wounded masculine psyche already believes, that he is only valuable for what he provides, that even in this moment of supposed pleasure, he's a burden. He's taking something from you. He's not worthy of genuine desire. Jung wrote extensively about the anima, the unconscious feminine aspect within every man, and the anima craves devotion, not performance, not technique, devotion. The sense that the woman before him genuinely desires to be exactly where she is, doing exactly what she's doing. That she's not enduring this or rushing through this or mentally making a grocery list. That this act, for her, is not a means to an end, but an end in itself. Because being close to him, tasting him, feeling him respond, genuinely fulfills something in her. When Jung's male patients finally felt safe enough to tell the truth, what emerged was heartbreaking in its consistency. Men don't want you to be good at oral sex. They want you to want to do it. They want to look down and see someone who's savoring the experience, who's present, who's found their own pleasure in his pleasure. Because that genuine desire, validates something the masculine psyche has been starved for since boyhood, the radical notion that he is desirable simply for existing, not for performing, not for providing, for being. This is the first piece of the puzzle Jung uncovered. The masculine psyche is split between the performer and the person, the man who provides and the boy who just wants to be wanted, and every intimate act becomes a battleground for those two selves. Jung's work with male patients revealed 4 consistent psychological needs that surface during vulnerable intimacy, and oral sex, because of its uniquely receptive nature, triggers all 4 simultaneously. Understanding these needs is like finding the cipher to masculine desire. Once you see them, everything shifts. First, permission to surrender. Men live in a constant state of having to be on, in control. The protector, the provider, the decision maker, the one who doesn't break. Jung called this the burden of the persona, the exhausting mask of capability that men wear because they've learned their vulnerability isn't safe. But oral sex, psychologically, is one of the few moments where a man is physically positioned to surrender completely. He can't reciprocate in that moment. He can't perform. He has to simply receive. But here's the trap: he can only surrender if he trusts you won't weaponize his vulnerability. If he believes, deep in his nervous system, that you're not keeping score, that you won't use this moment against him later, won't resent him for it, won't see him as less than for needing this. 95% of women don't understand that men are monitoring for safety even in pleasure, especially in pleasure. Because pleasure requires letting the guard down. And most men learned very early that letting the guard down gets you hurt. Second, visual validation. Jung understood that men are visual processors, not because of simple biology, but because of something deeper, the need for external confirmation of internal worth. Men have been socialized to believe that their thoughts and feelings don't matter unless they're validated by external reality, by results, by evidence, by what they can see. During oral sex, the visual component isn't about pornography or objectification. It's about seeing proof that you desire him, that you're not in your head or disconnected or going through motions. Men need to look down and see a woman who is clearly, visibly, genuinely engaged. Not because he's greedy or demanding, but because his psyche needs external validation that this is real, that your desire for him is real, that he's not imposing or taking or being selfish. This is why closed eyes, distraction, or mechanical movement devastates men, even if the physical sensation is technically correct. Because it confirms the shadow belief she's not really here. She doesn't really want me. I'm alone even in this intimacy. Third, the sacred masculine. Jung wrote about the archetypal need for the masculine to be consecrated, to be deemed worthy of devotion, not through accomplishment or performance, but through simple being. In ancient mystery traditions, the phallus wasn't just a sexual organ. It was a symbol of creative life force, of generative power. It was sacred. Modern men carry a confused relationship with their own sexuality. They've been taught it's simultaneously dirty, dangerous, demanding, and the thing they're supposed to be constantly ready to provide. But what Jung's patients revealed was this: men crave having their sexuality treated as sacred, as something worthy of attention, not because of what it can do for you, but because of what it represents about life force itself. When a woman approaches oral sex with reverence, with genuine appreciation, with sensory presence, with the energy of "I am choosing to honor this part of you," it reaches something in the masculine psyche that has been starving for recognition. It says, your desire is not dirty, your need is not shameful, your pleasure is not a burden. And for most men, that message is so foreign, so revolutionary, that the first time they truly receive it, something breaks open. Fourth, integrated vulnerability. Jung's concept of individuation, becoming whole by integrating all aspects of the self, is what men are unconsciously seeking in intimate moments. The strong and the weak, the powerful and the needy, the provider and the one who wants to be provided for. Oral sex, when done with psychological attunement, allows a man to be both the masculine archetype and the vulnerable human simultaneously. He's physically exposed, yes, but more than that, his pleasure, his need, his response, his body's honest reactions is completely visible. There's nowhere to hide, no performance he can give to distract from the truth of what's happening. And if he feels judged in that moment, if he senses that you see his need as weakness, or his response as inadequate, or his vulnerability as unattractive, the shadow material floods in. Shame, self-consciousness, disconnection. But if he feels accepted, if he senses that you see all of him, the power and the need, the control and the surrender, and that you desire him more, not less, for that wholeness, then something Jung called the conjunctio can happen. The sacred union, not just of bodies but of integrated selves. The moment where he doesn't have to choose between being powerful and being human. He can be both. This is what 95% of women don't understand. You're not just touching his body. You're touching his entire psychological relationship with worthiness, desire, shame, and acceptance. Here's where Jung's insights get startlingly specific. Through dream analysis, word association tests, and deep therapeutic work, Jung identified exactly what the male psyche is scanning for during vulnerable intimacy. And once you understand this monitoring system, the entire dynamic of masculine pleasure makes sense. He's monitoring your desire level, not your performance. Your desire. Men have highly attuned sensors for female authenticity because their survival, historically and psychologically, depended on reading female approval. A man during oral sex is constantly, often unconsciously, checking. Does she actually want to be doing this? Is she present or performing? Is there genuine hunger in her energy, or is this obligation? Jung noted that men report feeling more anxious during receiving oral sex than during almost any other intimate act, not because of physical sensation, but because of this monitoring, because they're vulnerable and they can't perform their way out of it, and they're terrified of discovering that you're not really there, not really wanting this. What does real desire look like to the male psyche? Presence, savoring, taking your time not because you're following technique instructions, but because you're genuinely engaged, making sounds not because you think you should, but because you're authentically experiencing pleasure in his pleasure, looking at him with genuine appreciation, not with the eyes of someone completing a task. Men can tell the difference. Every single time, he's monitoring for judgment. Jung's male patients consistently reported a terror of being too much or not enough during receiving pleasure, too needy, too slow to respond, too fast, too demanding, not responsive enough, body not perfect enough, response not enthusiastic enough. The masculine shadow is filled with the fear of inadequacy, and oral sex, where his body's honest responses are completely visible, triggers every buried insecurity. Is he taking too long? Is his body responding correctly? Does he taste okay? Does he look okay from that angle? Is his pleasure requiring too much effort from you? The moment he senses judgment, even subtle judgment, even judgment you or not consciously sending, his nervous system goes into threat mode. He can't relax. He can't receive. He starts performing even in the act of receiving, trying to hurry up, trying to have the right response, trying to make this easier for you. And that performance kills the very thing he's craving, genuine connection in vulnerability. He's monitoring power dynamics. Jung understood that healthy masculine psychology requires both power and surrender, both strength and vulnerability. But most men have been taught that these are mutually exclusive, that if they surrender, they lose power, that if they're vulnerable, they're weak. During oral sex, men are unconsciously monitoring whether you're using this moment of his receptivity against him, whether you see him as less masculine for needing this, whether you're collecting this moment as evidence of his weakness, whether you're going to demand something in return or hold this over him or use it as leverage later. This sounds paranoid until you understand how many men have experienced exactly that. Had their vulnerability weaponized, had their needs used against them, had moments of surrender turned into reasons they're inadequate or selfish or weak. The men who can truly relax into receiving oral sex are the men who trust, bone deep, that their surrender won't be punished, that their vulnerability won't be collected as ammunition, that their need won't be resented. He's monitoring your pleasure. This one surprises most women. But Jung's work revealed it consistently. Men need to know you're experiencing some form of genuine pleasure or fulfillment in the act itself. Not pleasure because of what comes after. Not satisfaction because you're pleasing him, but actual, in-the-moment engagement that fulfills something in you. Why? Because if you're not experiencing any positive feeling, then he's taking from you. He's burdening you. He's making you endure something for his sake. And that triggers the deepest masculine wound. The belief that his needs are impositions, that his pleasure costs others too much, that he's inherently a burden. Men report that the most powerful oral sex experiences of their lives weren't the most technically skilled. They were the times when they genuinely believed the woman was savoring the experience, was finding her own form of pleasure in the intimacy, was genuinely choosing to be there. Jung called this the principle of mutual nourishment, the idea that healthy intimacy requires both people to be fed by the experience, even if in different ways. Men need to see evidence that this isn't sacrifice, that you're not martyring yourself, that something in you is genuinely fulfilled by being this close to him, by feeling his response, by having this form of intimate access. Now I want you to pause for a moment. If what I'm sharing is landing, if you're starting to see the men in your life differently, hit that subscribe button. Because we're going deeper into Jung's most controversial insights about masculine sexuality in the rest of this video, and you won't want to miss what's coming. The next section reveals the specific psychological shift that transforms this act from performance to power. Let's continue. Jung didn't just diagnose psychological patterns. He offered paths to wholeness, and his approach to masculine sexuality was revolutionary because it reframed everything as integration, not performance. Here's how to apply Jung's insights practically, in ways that honor both the masculine psyche and your own authentic desire. Create the container of safety first. Before any physical touch, Jung emphasized the importance of the psychological container, the space of trust where vulnerability can emerge. With masculine sexuality, this means explicitly addressing the monitoring I described earlier. Not with a speech or a performance of reassurance, but with consistent patterns that let his nervous system know he's safe. This looks like initiating not because you're performing wifely duty, but because you genuinely desire him. Bringing curiosity instead of judgment to his body's responses. Never using his vulnerability as currency or weapon in arguments. Not keeping score. Letting him see that his pleasure genuinely pleases you, not as ego stroke, but as authentic connection. Men's nervous systems need consistent evidence over time. One enthusiastic encounter doesn't override years of experience teaching him that his needs are burdens. Building the container means showing up with the same energy repeatedly until his body starts to believe it's real. Presence over performance. Jung distinguished between the persona, the performance, and the self, the authentic being. Most women approach oral sex from the persona, what they think they should do, how they think they should act, what they think men want. But the masculine psyche can sense persona immediately, and it triggers disconnection. Instead, slow down. Way down. Let yourself actually experience the textures, the taste, the temperature, the weight, the responses. Find what genuinely interests you about this. Maybe it's the vulnerability in his face. Maybe it's the power of eliciting response. Maybe it's the intimacy of access. But find your authentic engagement. Men report that the shift from technique to presence is unmistakable. When a woman is in her head running through steps, there's a mechanical quality that no amount of technical skill can hide. But when she's genuinely present, genuinely experiencing the moment, her touch becomes attuned. She naturally responds to his responses. She finds rhythm not from a tutorial but from listening to his body, Jung would say. Stop performing receiving pleasure and actually receive the experience of giving it. Find what's nourishing for you in this intimacy. Visual devotion. Remember Jung's insight about men needing external validation of internal worth. You can provide that through intentional visual communication. This isn't about performing for male gaze. It's about letting him see your genuine engagement. Look at him. Not constantly, not performatively, but in moments of real connection. Let him see your face while you're savoring him. Let him see that you're present, that you're not disgusted or disconnected or enduring. Because his shadow is telling him all of those things. Your eyes can speak directly to the self beneath the shadow. And here's the subtle part. Men also need to sometimes not be looked at, to close their eyes and simply feel without being observed. The integration comes from alternating, moments where he can see your desire, and moments where he can disappear into sensation, without monitoring how he looks or responds. Read his cues. When he closes his eyes and his breathing deepens, that's surrender. Don't pull him back to visual connection in those moments. Let him go where his psyche needs to go, the sacred timing. Jung spoke often about kairos versus chronos, sacred time versus clock time. Men are anxious about taking too long during oral sex because they're trapped in chronos, in performance metrics. Your role is to establish kairos, where time becomes irrelevant because you're both in a suspended space of connection. This isn't about lying and saying take all the time you need if you're actually watching the clock. It's about genuinely shifting into a different relationship with time. Maybe it means finding your own meditative state in the act, so you're not mentally checking out. Men can feel when you've entered sacred time with them, versus when you're counting minutes. And that feeling of being worth unhurried attention reaches the wounded masculine psyche like medicine. The integration moment. Jung's ultimate goal was individuation, wholeness through integrating all aspects of self. The most powerful thing you can do is help a man integrate the split between his powerful self and his vulnerable self during oral sex. This means not treating him differently after moments of surrender, not making his vulnerability cute, or turning it into material for jokes or less masculine for needing this, and explicitly naming what you genuinely appreciate, not his performance, but his trust, his surrender, his willingness to let you see all of him. I love that you trust me enough to let go is more powerful than any compliment about his body, because it speaks to the integration. It says, I see both your strength and your vulnerability, and I desire both equally. Jung believed that men could only access their full masculine power when they stopped splitting off their needs and vulnerability, when they could be both strong and surrendered, provider and receiver, powerful and open. And intimate moments like this, when witnessed with genuine acceptance, teach the masculine psyche that wholeness is possible, that integration is what men are actually craving, not performance, wholeness. Once you understand Jung's framework, you stop seeing oral sex as a sexual act and start seeing it as a psychological ritual, one that has the power to heal or wound the masculine psyche depending on how it's approached. And when you shift your approach based on these insights, everything changes. Not just the act itself, but the entire intimate dynamic between you. Men who feel genuinely desired during vulnerability become different partners. They're more present during your pleasure because they're not performing or protecting anymore. They're more emotionally available because their nervous system has learned that vulnerability is safe. They're more generous because they're not operating from depletion, from the belief that their needs are burdens that must be balanced with perfect reciprocation. Jung understood that masculine psychology is not about dominance or submission. It's about integration, about being allowed to contain multitudes, strong and vulnerable, powerful and needy, provider and receiver. And when men experience that integration is safe, as desired, is honored, they become the partners most women are actually craving, whole people who can show up fully without armor. This is the shift from transaction to transformation, from performance to presence, from giving head to giving sanctuary. And here's what Jung knew that our culture has forgotten. Women benefit enormously from this shift too. Not because you're servicing male ego, but because genuine intimate connection nourishes both people. When you approach oral sex from authentic desire rather than obligation, when you're truly present rather than performing, when you find your own form of fulfillment in the intimacy, you're accessing something powerful too. You're practicing the art of generous desire, of finding pleasure in evoking pleasure, of wielding intimate power not through withholding or performing, but through genuine devotion. And that practice transforms you too, makes you more attuned, more confident, more connected to your own sexuality as something that gives as well as receives. Jung would remind us that archetypes need each other. The masculine needs the feminine to give permission for vulnerability. The feminine needs the masculine to trust her with that vulnerability. It's not a hierarchy. It's an interdependent sacred dynamic where both people are transformed by showing up authentically. Your call to action. If you've made it this far, something in you recognizes the truth in Jung's framework. You've seen it in your relationships, the monitoring, the performance, the split between who he is and who he thinks he needs to be. And you're ready to shift the dynamic from performance to presence. Here's what I want you to do. First, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, because I'm releasing a follow-up video next week on Jung's insights into what women actually need men to understand about female pleasure, the other half of this equation that creates genuine intimate union. Second, drop a comment below telling me, what's one insight from this video that completely reframed how you understand masculine desire? I read every comment, and your insights often become future videos. Third, and most importantly, have a conversation with your partner. Not right before or after sex, in a neutral moment. Ask him what would make you feel most safe and desired during intimate moments. Don't coach his answer. Don't defend or explain. Just listen. Because Jung taught us that healing begins with being witnessed. And finally, if you know a woman who's struggling to understand the man in her life, share this video with her. Not as an instruction manual, but as an invitation to see masculine psychology with more compassion, more nuance, more depth. Jung's work was about helping people see each other as full humans, not performing roles. This video is part of that larger mission. The men in your life are carrying so much that they've never been given permission to voice. So much need that's been labeled as weakness. So much vulnerability that's been turned into shame. You have the power, not the obligation, but the power, to offer a different experience. To be the space where performance stops and presence begins, where the wounded masculine psyche finally gets to rest. That's not just good sex. That's sacred work. That's the kind of intimacy that changes lives. Jung spent his career studying what makes people whole. This, what I've shared with you today, is part of that path to wholeness. For him, and for you. Now go create the kind of intimacy that heals.